Tell me, Monte, what time of year did we film? Wasn't it in the fall?
We were just finishing in October with the colors like this in North Carolina.
Right. So it was September, October. We had a very narrow window within which to shoot the film.
That's right. That's right. I think we started in late August, and we had 7 weeks of 6 weeks of shooting and a week of traveling.
Yeah. A lot of shooting while we traveled.
Yeah.
Too.
That's right. Yeah, it was all interspersed, but I mean, basically we figured 42 days out of 49 were supposed to be shooting days, but we really traveled more than that.
And was that in 71?
It was in 70.
70, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Picture came out in 70. Are we ready?
Yeah. Oh, we're recording already.
Oh, you're recording. Good. Okay. Is it true that you've never seen the movie?
Yeah.
Cloud?
There are a lot of there were in the old days a lot of actors who wouldn't watch themselves on screen.
No, I mean, I'm not an actor, but I don't watch myself on screen. And when I'm finished with an album, usually I'm pretty much done with it unless I need reference for something.
Uh-huh.
I don't, I haven't, I don't feel comfortable watching myself. It's not any, I suppose there are certain things about it that would be, helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, I just it doesn't make me feel good, and it makes me feel self-conscious later, and think about what I've just done, or it's just not helpful to me.
Well, I think that was the reason that these actors didn't watch themselves, so that they wouldn't become self-conscious. But you have to watch yourself if you're like editing now, where you're putting a video together. Well, I'm not a performer, but I do interviews like this sometimes, and I don't like to watch myself doing it. But I don't like to watch my movies so much. I like to watch parts. I don't watch the movie. I watch the audience. I get something out of seeing what kind of reaction.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll sometimes, usually, if I'm going to do a Q&A, I'll come for the last 10 minutes and, watch the audience, and then I'll do the Q&A, but I don't watch the movie over and over and over again.
Right, no. The other thing is that, Two-Lane Blacktop was my only film, and it was strange, the way, I've often wanted to ask you questions about, your thinking about it. We were given a page of script pretty much at a time, or a scene at a time, so I got the feeling that perhaps not trusting us is the wrong way to put it, but you didn't want to include us to give us an overall idea of what the movie was. I always assumed that since we didn't see the script in advance, and we many of us didn't. I suppose Warren Oates saw it.
Yes, he did. I don't know how much.
How about Harry Dean? Did he?
He just had one scene, so he got his pages when he got on location. He didn't know what the role was. He was very upset when he found out he was playing, as he said, a homosexual. But I generally, I love actors, but I'm kind of against actor training in a funny way. I'm against intellectualizing, just in general. And that was an experiment. I was just trying to see what it would be like if people could live, because it's not really a story movie. It's day-to-day life.
Right. And in a way, what our experience was the experience of moving across the country in this car, and to a large extent, it's almost as if you filmed that as a documentary. I mean, we weren't pretending to do that. We were actually doing that. So, and we had no idea of what was coming up next, or what the script was finally where it was going to deliver us.
Mm-hmm. But you don't in life. You don't know.
That's right. You don't know.
The next day's going to deliver.
And I think, I certainly understood that I was such a novice at what I was doing that I didn't have any method of or way of looking at a script and developing a character. So I didn't have a character, and neither did Laurie or Dennis, other than their personalities in the circumstances in which they were being filmed. So that the fact of that sort of left me with the opinion that I shouldn't see the film. You know, it's sort of my experience of it was the day-to-day experience of moving through that period of time. There were cameras present. We repeated things. If you'll remember, Jackie would get us together at the beginning, particularly in the first couple of weeks of the film. She'd get us together and basically sort of flatten us out. You know, basically run the lines that we were about to do through, and basically it was sort of desensitized us to a certain extent. So it was my experience of it. So I've always thought of it, and it exists for me as something that happened in the fall of 1970 over about 6-week period.
Right.
Intense. You know, traveling across the country, it was very much, I guess, what the storyline of the film was.
That's right.
You were traveling across the country in this car, dealing with the automobile, really.
Well, that's you know, that it was a unique opportunity, because normally you can't film in sequence. We had to film in sequence because we had a geographical reason to only film in sequence, because we were going from one place to another. But I mean, you remember we shot a screen test. You and Laurie each did screen tests.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
And
Remind me, I'll remember more.
well, what did you think when you got a call asking if you would come in and talk about doing a movie?
Well, I was thrilled. I mean, it seemed like a great opportunity to do something, and my friend Jake Brackman, he knew Rudy and said, this is going to be a great film because Rudy's fantastic writer, and Peter Asher was my manager in those days, and for a long time afterward. Peter thought it was a great idea. Just seemed to sort of fit in.
Right.
And
so it was an adventure, and
yeah. Just sort of thought, I'm game for this. I'll give it a try.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Peter, Joni Mitchell, whom I met when she came to visit on the movie, she did a big, main and end title song for me on another movie, and we had it like we needed it like yesterday, and I was in Rome, and called her, and we sent somebody over with the material, the film. We'd already shot it. This was like in post-production, and she went into her studio and did an a cappella thing, just like in 2 hours, and then FedExed it back. We had it the next day. It was
great!
It was amazing.
Yeah, that is great. I was out of touch with Joni for a long, long time, but she's just releasing this album, I guess this week, called Shine, and that's a song on the album which she asked me to play on it. So I've seen her recently, which was great, and the album's fantastic. First album of original songs, I think, for a while. She did a couple of albums of standards, which they were great, but this is really it's a thrill to have access to it again.
Great.
Her writing.
What was it like? I mean, one thing that was interesting, to me, was the fact that you approached it, very much, from the mind, but it didn't show up on screen that way. You were very upset when, other actors weren't as professional as you were, when they didn't know their lines when they got on the set and so forth. And you took it very seriously and very professionally, and it seemed like you were coming from your head, but that's not where what you see on the screen. What you see on the screen is something that's a very emotional.
I felt as though you know, and people who've seen the film have said that it seems flat, that it's low affect essentially, and that this, but the effect of that is that the emotional content of it is all the more powerful, and that works. That's really that sort of understatement often really amplifies things, you know, and sort of little wooden family sort of thing, you know.
Now, do you find as a performer that once you get out there that you're very relaxed?
Well, generally, sometimes not. What I try to do as a performer is to prepare to a certain extent and then just basically let it go. And what you hope for is to be well prepared, well rehearsed, but when you're actually on stage, to be in the present moment and on the surface of yourself, to come right to the surface of yourself and as close to the present moment as possible. So that you're having a real experience with the audience in that place. Since I don't have a character that I have invented other than my own personality, there's just I don't know. It's just an attempt at being. I want to get comfortable and I want to have a good time. I want to enjoy myself, and so does the audience. You know, so it's. I think I look comfortable on stage. I appear as though I'm comfortable, and I'm often less so than I appear. I'm told. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's again, it's not a character. It's not an assumed role. It's just trying to be, you know, genuine and present.
Well, I think you've just defined what acting is all about, for me anyway. And one great line that I remember from a novel about an old actor who's been called back to work after years of retirement. And he goes to the director one day and he says, you know, I'm sorry, but I just don't know how to become this character. And the director says, well, that's your problem. He says, your job is not to become the character. The character has to become you. Mm. And, that's good. And that's really what you're saying. I mean, that present tense thing is what it's all about.
Right, that's right. But in the case of Two-Lane Blacktop, we simply were filmed doing this thing that we were doing. I mean, we didn't have really the responsibility of being these characters, or you know, sort of fleshing them out.
Well, I mean, when you were chasing after, when Laurie leaves with Warren, and you're chasing after. I mean, you knew what that was all about. I mean, you were experiencing, you know, that situation.
Right.
So, you remember anything about working with any of the actors?
Sure.
What are some of your feelings about any of them?
You know, it was very close quarters and quite intense. 15 hours a day. Often we worked. Solidly, you know, we sort of, you know, our clothes smelled, we were, you know, eating and breathing each other's air, you know, it was very it was very intense, and I think this is often the case on movie shoots, that people are forced into really intense and immediate contact with one another, and they're forced to experience each other in a way that is it has to be you know, it has to be real and intense, but you know, then it's done, it's gone. So I remember I didn't have ongoing relationships with any of those people, you know. But I remember traveling with Warren he had a little camper a little Winnebago that we traveled in with him, and I remember some side trips that we took. We went up to Haute Villa and on the Four Corners region of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and we went to a snake dance. We took mescaline, and it was really, I got to know Warren really. I treasured that. That was great to get to know him.
Well, that must have been a Sunday. I mean,
Yes, it was a Sunday or something. Yeah.
there wasn't much time for it.
No, there was hardly any time off. Yeah. And Laurie and Dennis, I just went through a range of emotions with them. I was irritated with them for a while and impatient, and just because we were so close and all in the same boat, but I look back on it as as being this an intense patch, a stretch.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your mutiny when you said you wouldn't work anymore if I didn't give you the script?
No, I don't. I don't remember that. Did I insist on the script at a certain point?
Yeah, we were about halfway through.
I know I was. It began to bug me that you didn't trust me with with my own character, and it's not that I got anything from getting the script. It's just that I wanted to be, included.
Right.
I wanted to feel as though if I was being asked to be part of this this thing, that I should be brought in on the thing. I felt very sort of observed and we weren't allowed to see dailies either. I think that's also wise.
Yeah, that I think. Yeah, sometimes you can't. In the world today, sometimes you can't prevent somebody who's basically got a lot more power than you do on the set if they want to see dailies. It's like an 800-pound gorilla.
Right. That's right. No, at the time I was irritated that that we weren't in on it. Dennis and Laurie and I.
Yeah, Dennis. I know that you got upset because he would flub his lines or whatever a lot, but he was so totally unself-conscious to the point where he literally forgot there was a camera, and he would get caught up in just watching what was going on.
That's great.
It's an amazing thing to see. I've never experienced that before.
Well, I'd like to see it. I think I've got enough distance on it now that I wouldn't sort of identify immediately with it. I may run screaming into the bushes as soon as it is on, but but I'd like to take a look at it. It hasn't been in the beginning it was a point. I said no, I'm not going to watch that.
Right.
But after a while, it just was because it wasn't available. And
Yeah. No.
but now that it is again, I will. I'll take a look at it.
Well, this is going to be the best anybody will ever see it. I mean, it's going to be extraordinary. When I did the screen test, remember you had a mustache.
Yes, that's right.
And we couldn't decide whether we wanted you with or without. So in the screen test, you shaved the mustache, and that's gone. Unfortunately, but. Also, but in the material we have, you sing Riding on a Railroad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was new at that point.
I think, as I remember, you said, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that you said that you had just composed it the night before. Is that possible?
Yeah, sure. It is quite possible, and because it was around that time that I wrote it, I know, and it could have been about my experience of making that movie.
Well, this was in the screen test. This is before we made the movie.
I know it.
Yeah.
I realize, but
Yeah.
That's interesting. Joni, who I was seeing at that time, who we were seeing each other. And she traveled with me somewhat on the shooting of it. Would come and visit from at a couple of different points when we were out there. She made me a sweater, I remember. She was knitting at the time. And you know, it's like so many things with Joni. She doesn't have to learn to do it. She just says, I haven't got time to learn, I'm gonna do it. You know, so you know, this sweater had sleeves. One sleeve was this long, but it was 2-lane blacktop. It had a you know, the colors of the southwestern desert on it, and it had a 2-lane blacktop running through it and stuff. And I used to wear the sweater for a long time. I saw myself in a picture in that thing sometime recently. It was,
well, I remember one place that she came to visit was Tucumcari, New Mexico. That great gas station with the totems and the 2 Indians sitting in front. And there's one shot that she's in. You can't see her because she's like, you know, a fly in the landscape. But you know, but I know she's there because I remember that she was like off walking through this field while we were making the shot. And I remember, you know, everybody, you know, you and she, and I guess that was mainly just the 2 of you singing at night. I mean, it was just that was an extraordinary experience.
I wrote a few songs during that time while we were out there. I wrote "You Can Close Your Eyes" while we were on the road. Oh, a couple more, I guess. And I remember Jay Wheatley, that was his name, the mechanic who put the car together, who raced that particular car, and who built the 4 versions of the car that we used in the film. 3 or 4 versions, yeah. I remember the day that we were shooting the last scene, and I destroyed the car, and just by just the luck of the draw, did not kill the cameraman there was a cameraman riding in the back. He should have been injured, and there was a still photographer behind us.
Yeah, well, I was there. I was behind. You could have killed all 3 of us, actually.
That's right. I should have done. I mean, because
But
you guys weren't. Yeah, there was a Hearst linkage, and and reverse was very close to first. You couldn't tell by feeling it whether it was in first or reverse.
Right.
And Jay had cooled down the engine, and we had, or somebody had. I can't remember which technical guy was doing that. But we had pulled the car, pushed the car forward, and then put it in reverse and backed it up to the position that it was going to be filmed from. So it was sitting there in reverse, where in all the other shots had been sitting there in first.
Right.
So I had no way of knowing that it was in reverse. So Jay just said, take it up to where you can feel the valves float, and it won't go rev any higher, which was about 6,500, and then just dump the clutch. Just drop it. And it was the first time that particular shot was the first time I'd really driven the car completely. I did some burnouts in earlier shots, but that particular one I was loving. I was just loving it. And I remember, as if it were in slow motion, seeing the front carapace sort of the car, which had a scoop, an air scoop on it. It just twisted off the car and went up in a spiral. And I whipped my head around. The drive, we busted all the thing sprung to take a torque in a forward direction, but if you give it full torque backwards, it's as if the 2 wheels were like drumsticks going bam, 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 and the drive shaft snapped right off, came whipping up through the floor, right between the cameraman's legs, and right back out again, completely spun it out. Pieces of metal just flying all over the place. The rear differential just exploding into shrapnel. And thank God, although they had been shooting right behind it, taking these stills as we shot away into the distance down this abandoned runway. For that particular run, the camera the battery was dead in the camera, or it needed a new roll of film, and he just happened not to be there that time. Because it definitely would have taken his head off.
Jesus. I didn't remember all of that.
Oh man, that one is impressed off my memory. And somewhere there should be as outtakes. There should be what was in the magazine when we did it.
So when we actually redid it, we used the car that wasn't the real race car, the one that was the dialogue car. Oh Lord, that's amazing. Well, anything else like that you remember?
Yes, I remember at one point there was like there was a continuity sort of skip, and I became obsessed with the idea that nobody would have noticed this minor point of continuity. But I insisted that we work into a scene, my getting my shirt from another, so that it was totally unnecessary. But I can't remember the continuity person on this.
Yeah, that's it. No, you were supposed to have your shirt on and you didn't, and so we wrote a scene where you called and said, "Will you toss me my shirt, please?" You know? Yeah.
What else? I remember a relatively ad-libbed scene with that Rudy was in, where I say to him something like, "Make it 300, motherfucker, and we'll have an automobile race."
Right,
you know?
right.
And
3 yards, motherfucker.
yeah, make it 3 yards, motherfucker. We'll have it. Anyway, it was that was with Rudy in a bar in Santa Fe.
Yeah.
And I said, should I drink? And you said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And, all I need is a little license to get wasted. So I was so twisted by the end of that scene that I'm surprised it worked at all.
Well, there's a great rapport, because that's one of the, those moments where it's like empathy, or where you're feeling so much for him and what's happening when Jackie starts cursing and runs out on him, and just the pantomime between the two, the exchange of looks. It was really beautiful.
I remember early on when we were in Los Angeles at a racetrack doing burnouts to get ready for a run, and I remember, I just met Jay Wheatley, who, I grew up in North Carolina in the countryside, and drag racing was a weekly event. There was a local drag strip, and my brother Alex was the enthusiast, but I would tag along, and I was always kind of alienated and didn't really fit in anywhere, but I would go along to these to the drag strip for lack of anything else to do, and so I knew people like Jay. He was from Columbia, Maryland, or no, somewhere in Maryland in the countryside, and he had built this car. I loved a '55 Chevy, and I knew the car and how sort of preferred it was.
Yeah.
For a while. So yeah, there were just things about it that were awful cool. I did, and I regret it. I apologize now to you for it, but I did lose my cool. I did get very irritated as time went by. You son of a bitch.
Well, I mean, I don't know where these things come from. The way I direct is I don't. And that's what I tell my students. I say, how do you direct? Don't. How do you act? Don't. But using that as a starting point, there are so many colors. I mean, there's a great essay in a book called A Biographical Dictionary of Film by David Thompson, in which he talks about the actor he thinks is the most important actor in the history of the movies, and that's Cary Grant. And the reason he gives is that Cary Grant was able, or willing, I guess, to show his dark side along with his light side. He never tried to hide his dark side, where all these movie stars today particularly are afraid to show the dark side because they don't want to tarnish their movie star image. And what's so interesting in Two-Lane Blacktop is that you have, these tremendous moments of, caring for, the other character, and then alongside it, just, you let this kind of irritation come out. It's like the scene where you lean out the window and you whistle at Laurie and say, "Hey, sweetheart, and come on," and it was just so nasty. And but actors won't do that. It's a hard thing to get anybody to show that side of themselves.
Huh.
So that's what's. I think that's what's so. The movie is, has a few loyal fans who are, who adore it, who just are crazy about it. And I think that's why, because it has this unique quality of, really letting people see a little piece of life, real life, I think,
I felt as though the film was an anomaly, that it was outside of the usual experience of what making a film for a studio is. And that is to say, a film with a relatively good budget. I know that, relatively, I think you shot it for $5 million, $2 million?
$875,000.
Right.
Budgeted at $950, came in $75,000 under.
Unbelievable, yeah. I had just made an album for $8,000. And so I guess that must have seemed like a lot. But no, it wasn't much. And so I guess it isn't an anomaly. It really is just an independent sort of very, a shoestring kind of an enterprise.
Well, I mean, we had to fight because we had to, they had to get concessions from the unions. It was a full union picture, but I didn't want a makeup artist because I didn't need one. Remember, you all had to go out and get tans. That was the makeup. So, they let us get away with not hiring people that normally would be hired and wouldn't be used, So that's how, one way to keep the budget down. But, it's just, it couldn't happen again. That was a picture that could not be made today.
No, the other thing is that, it was, again, my view of the thing is 30 years ago, and only from the inside of the experience. I didn't see the product or haven't seen it yet. But as I say, I think I'm safe to watch it now, and I'd like to. But it seemed to me at the time as though things now are chopped into shorter and shorter pieces it's almost like, as if our senses are independent. They're not, our senses actually are to navigate through this world, and they report back to the whole, and they're, but more and more entertainment treats our senses as if here's your sense of sight, here's your hearing, here's your, all of these things are just independent. And as soon as they stimulate one or saturate one, and as soon as it recovers, they hit it again. That's the pacing of movies, very, very rapid. And as soon as you can recover from one thing having happened, they do it again. It's as though the senses and just the stimulation of the senses is the only point, not that it reports back to a whole that's assembling the world as we go. And it seemed to me as though Two-Lane Blacktop had a much longer sort of loop, and old film as opposed to new film is very much that way. That you're allowed a much more slower, a much more sort of global kind of pace, a much more lifelike pace, and not this sort of smithereen experience of just, get the adrenaline to pop off one more time, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And how you were allowed to make a film like that and release it in a
it was-
major way.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was a great bit of luck, and it was a privilege. It was, you know, fantastic. One more thing. What was it like when the only character who sings in the movie is the only one who can't carry a tune?
Is that Laurie?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know, I don't know. I don't remember that aspect of it. I can't remember her singing, or that was something that, you know, that I was either impressed with the idea that she could or couldn't sing.
But were you upset because you didn't get a chance to sing in the
No,
movie?
no, I didn't want to sing in it.
You didn't? I see. Okay.
I was glad, you know, that I was being asked to do something else.
Yeah, because, you know, I felt it would be detrimental empathy, that it would be something that would call attention to the fact of, you know, who you were in your other life.
Right, unless you were making an Elvis Presley movie like Jailhouse Rock or something. And that's,
Right.
even that would be sweet by comparison to today. But yeah, no, that's you were right about that, and so many other things too.
Well, I have to tell you, it's really great to see you after all this time.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
great to see you too. Yeah.
James, let's not wait another
Yeah.
the 35 years.
There's not another 35 in me. Although I have these two young kids now, you know, two 6-year-old twins, and you know, when I do the numbers, I have to live for another 40 years probably, which is going to be a long time. So
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, you've been
die.
productive. I have the same 2 kids I had when I did the movie. I haven't made any more. So you've outperformed me in that area.
well, you know, it's not a competitive sport, but I know I can't believe it. Here I find myself. The thing about having kids is it drags you back into the center of the culture and a sort of, you know, just the mediocre middle of it all over again. You know, all of that stuff you thought you had cleared, and now there was open water in front of you, and suddenly you're back in the minivan with the car seats in the back and the strollers and the,
Right.
you know, the little league games and the you know, anyway.
Well, you know what Mark Twain says about kids. He said, "Children are a great joy and a great bother."
That's right.
Anyway, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you again.